The rain had been falling for 3 straight days, the kind of rain that doesn't ask permission before turning dirt roads into rivers and rice fields into oceans, and in the forgotten village of Barivpur, where poverty clung to every cracked wall and empty stomach, 17-year-old Arav was doing what he always did at dawn, pulling his torn sandals tighter and heading toward the flooded farmlands to help his mother save what little grain they had left. Arav had grown up knowing hunger as a familiar companion. His father had died years ago in a quarry accident, leaving behind debts instead of dreams, and from that day on, Arav became the man of the house, though the house itself barely stood. As he walked along the swollen dirt path, rain slicing down his face, he heard something strange beneath the roar of the water, a scream, faint but desperate, swallowed and returned by the wind. He froze, heart pounding, scanning the chaos of rushing brown water when he saw it, a black luxury SUV, half submerged, spinning slowly as the flood dragged it toward a broken bridge downstream. Inside, through the rain-streaked window, he saw a woman pounding the glass, terror written across her face. Without thinking, without calculating the cost, Arav ran. Villagers shouted from a distance, warning him that the current would kill him, that no life was worth another, but Arav ignored them, plunging into the freezing water that slammed against his legs like fists. The flood tried to pull him under, but desperation gave him strength he never knew he had. He reached the vehicle just as it lurched violently, bracing himself against the door as water surged past his chest. With shaking hands, he grabbed a rusted iron rod lodged in the debris, smashed the window, and reached inside, glass cutting his arms as he fought against the water pouring in. The woman screamed, sobbing, saying she couldn't swim, that she was trapped, that she was going to die, and Arav shouted back, his voice calm despite his racing heart, telling her to trust him, telling her to hold on to him no matter what. He wrapped one arm around her, feeling how light she was, how fragile, and with the last ounce of strength in his starving body, he pushed away from the car just as it was swallowed completely by the flood. The water dragged them mercilessly, spinning them like leaves, slamming them against debris, but Arav refused to let go, clawing his way toward a tree that jutted out from the bank. When he finally collapsed onto the muddy ground, coughing water and blood, villagers rushed forward, pulling them both to safety. The woman lay trembling, soaked, alive, staring at Arav as if he were something unreal, while he lay beside her, exhausted, unaware that his torn shirt and bleeding hands had just saved one of the most powerful women in the world. Her name was Ananya Mehra, though Arav didn't know it then, CEO of a global investment empire worth billions, a woman whose decisions shaped markets and governments, a woman who had arrived in the region secretly to inspect land for a massive development project that would have wiped Barivpur off the map. As villagers offered her shelter and warm tea, Ananya watched Arav from across the small hut, noticing how he refused treatment until his mother arrived, how he apologized for bleeding on the floor, how he insisted that others be helped first. Later that night, as the storm calmed and the village slept, Ananya sat awake, her designer clothes drying on a rope beside mud-stained farming tools, replaying the moment she had looked into Arav's eyes through the shattered window and seen not fear for himself, but fear that she might die. For the first time in years, surrounded by wealth and power, she realized something terrifying. She had nearly died alone, unknown, saved not by security or money, but by a boy who owned nothing yet gave everything. Over the following days, as flood relief arrived and helicopters hovered above the village, Ananya quietly learned Arav's story, the debts, the school he dropped out of, the dreams he buried to keep his family alive, and each word struck her harder than the flood itself. Before leaving, she called Arav aside, pressed a small card into his trembling hand, and told him to call if he ever needed help. Arav nodded politely, never imagining that the woman standing before him controlled more wealth than his entire district combined. Weeks later, when Barivpur received an official notice ordering evacuation for a luxury dam project, panic spread like fire. Arav's mother cried, villagers protested, but no one listened, until a black helicopter descended, and Ananya Mehra stepped out, this time not as a victim, but as the decision-maker. She cancelled the project on the spot, announced a new initiative to rebuild the village with schools, hospitals, and flood defenses, and then, in front of stunned officials, called Arav forward, telling the world that this poor village boy had saved her life, and that courage like his was worth more than any $1 billion. Arav stood frozen, rain falling once more, realizing that one moment of selfless bravery had changed not only his fate, but the destiny of his entire village. And as the camera would slowly fade on his tear-filled eyes and the rebuilt future ahead, remember this, greatness doesn't come from wealth, status, or power, it comes from the choices we make when no one is watching. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that heroes still exist in the simplest places, subscribe to the channel now, because the next story might just change the way you see the world forever.